You're listening to iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 961. I got hitched there because I said listing, and I was like, is that right? I'm Josh Flanagan. I'm here with my co-host, Conor Kilpatrick.
Hello.
This is iFanboy 2025, 20th year of doing the show, 25th year of doing iFanboy, and it's 2025. So you see how that... Who thought of that? When did you do that?
Lucky. We got lucky. I thought of...
You did?
I realized it. Yeah, I realized
it's
what happened.
Brilliant. Like, I was telling Lindsay about it. I was like, I guess it happened over the holidays where they were talking because it just showed up for me one day. But I was like, that is great. Every week for 25 years, one of us, we all read comics. Then one of us has to pick a book they like, the pick of the week. The book they like the best. I'm not feeling
We should note, Josh is a little sick.
Yeah.
He's a little under the weather. And so
pick the book they like the best from their stack of comics, and that is called the pick of the week, hence the title of the program. We are going to talk about that comic book. We will talk about other books from the week, the patron pick, listener mail. It'll be a good time. I didn't feel well, but I was like, I'm not missing out on this. I've read a lot of comics to get here, and I'm not wasting it. How many comics
did you read?
I read a lot, but not so many that came out this week. My backlog caught up with me this week. Pretty good.
Did you have like 40 books?
I don't think it was that many at the beginning. I'd have to look. I deleted it doesn't matter. I don't have a current count. That's my point. There will be spoilers. Conor had the peak. Jesus. Conor had the peak. He was at the top. Is the peak of the pick.
There was a time I was at the top and just no longer. I had the pick, and I assume there's people out there who are just like, God, I just wish they would stop talking about G.I. Joe.
I mean, I'm married to one.
But what they need to understand is we are in it. Josh is rereading it again. We've got several really great G.I. Joe or G.I. Joe adjacent books happening, and it just so happens we're going to talk about it because we love G.I. Joe, and for I think the life of this show, basically, we haven't really had G.I. Joe to talk about. We talked about
had a couple of moments,
Larry Hama's run, and things would happen here and there, like G.I. Joe Cobra. When they did do that, I'm wrong. When they did do that reboot at IDW, we talked about it quite a bit.
Yeah,
but
and even way back in 2001, we talked about it for a little bit.
We didn't have a show then.
It's true.
There was no show in 2001.
You're right, but we wrote about it. So, there was a time when Devils Do, or those he who shall not be named, was making comics. That was a long time ago.
Yeah. So the pick of the week was G.I. Joe, Real American Hero 313 by Larry Hama, Chris Mooneyham, Francesco Segala, and Pat Brousseau. And this was a great issue, but also I think it's a real big payoff issue if you have been like us reading G.I. Joe comics for 30 years. Because sort of a running, not a gag, but a running event that happens throughout Larry Hama's book is that something happens to Baroness. Destro gets really mad about it because he's in love with her. And then, swears revenge, but he's usually persuaded not to do something, not to attack Cobra Commander, whoever did it. So in this storyline currently, Cobra Commander shot Baroness. And so this issue was, I feel like, look, I read G.I. Joe 1 through like 115, and then
you lapped me. I fell behind.
But no, I'm saying in the old days, and then we came back for like 290, and so there's 115 through 290. I don't know what happened in there, and anything could have happened.
Well, it's in a very heavy box over there.
I know. I have one downstairs. But my point is, I don't know if this ever happened before, but to me, this was the first time that Destro went into like Terminator mode and said, I am going to get revenge on Cobra Commander. And that's basically what he did. Was he went and, walked into this heavily fortified base that everyone knew what he was coming in to do, and took out everyone in his way to get to Cobra Commander. You can see at the cover, that's them fighting. That's Cobra Commander's new battle armor, which I loved because that was something else they would do all the time in the comics to make room for more toys. And this is not a thing anymore. There aren't toys coming out, so they don't need to do it, but they did it anyway.
There will be of this one.
You think they do that stuff now? I don't know. I'm asking curiously.
It's possible.
But they had like a really brutal fight. And I thought,
Yeah.
wow, I don't think I've ever seen this before. And Chris Mooneyham draws like a scary Terminator, and he kept having Destro in like heavy shadow, and he was just taking out the Cobra guards with impunity until he gets finally to Cobra Commander and they fight. And this was terrific. I love this.
I really liked one of my favorite parts is that the Joe ninjas, or whatever, the
Ninja Crew.
Yeah, the ninja crew, they just hung out there with the dreadnoks like on a détente, like Christmas in World War I trenches. We're like, let's just see what happens here.
Right.
This is cool. We're not getting in his way. We'll let him kill that guy, lesser of two evils or whatever. And it is classic sort of it's classic sort of Cobra Commander, is that he's a lot of boisterousness and not a lot to back it up. So eventually he's just stupid. Which is sort of what's supposed to happen. And they didn't kill him, did they? No. Yeah.
His suit freezes.
Right.
Like his battle suit, he very dumbly, because he's Cobra Commander, used up all the battery power on some big move that didn't work. And so Destro basically just waited out his battery, and he's basically frozen. The final line of the book is a very angry Destro shouting, "Somebody shovel this lavy hide Bambot into a skip bin." I don't know what half those words mean in that context.
I don't know what lavy is, but that's heed, because there's a lot of actual phonetic Scottish in this one,
which they never did before.
Which I was gonna say, I've never heard that, and it's very difficult for me to hear this Destro with a Scottish accent.
Right, I hear the cartoon Destro.
I know that he's had it for a very long time. He's like, somebody shovel this lavy he'd bump button to skip bin. Like, that might be what he's supposed to sound like, but it is very difficult. It sounds like it's like dubbed. It's like the foreign version of it. Like, it doesn't and you hear Chris Latta, and that's just how it is.
Right.
Yeah, so he was so angry that his Scottish accent was coming out.
I thought it was great. You're right. I just love the Joes, ninjas, and the dreadnoughts just waiting for the fight to happen and whatever was going to come. But what was really funny was and this is I have to also criticize a little bit in the grand comic book tradition. They're all in a line talking. They're all in a long police line in a way that no one would actually stand and talk. I guess if you're all watching something, you would. Yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense. Chris Mooneyham's too good of an artist to make that 90s mistake.
And also, yes, but also if you sort of flip through it, there's definitely a graphic element of having those characters sort of frame the things that are happening. There's sort of, oh God, I'm gonna sound like a dumbass fake intellectual, a Greek chorus sort of effect, as they're spectators. They're us. Right. We're looking at it as those things happen in the middle. And there's a really good page of it's about page 15, where Destro is walking through the window. There's he's loading his gun up in a sort of hero shot. All of the heads are stacked up, 4 on either side, and the panel before that, they're kind of in silhouette or outline in the background. It's a beautiful page. It's a great comic book page, and it's not necessarily. It's almost like a detailed splash page more than it is, sequential. But it is sequential. But you know what I mean. They throw file cabinets at each other. It's a good fight. It's a Deadwood season 3 fight.
It's a brutal fight that I feel like, because it was so brutal, that this hasn't happened before in this series. It just felt like that. It didn't feel like this had happened in issue 204. That we hadn't read. It just feels like this has been brewing since 1980, whatever, and they're finally going at it over Baroness. Not literally over Baroness, but over what Cobra Commander did to Baroness.
There's a bit here where he shoots all the. By the way, I love the entire Cobra army is just a bunch of red shirts or a bunch of stormtroopers. They just are like, what's he doing? Is he opening a case? I don't know. He's arming a weapon. And there's a shot where he targets them all at night, and he shoots them all right in the face. As a 6-panel sequence of them all taking it in their face in the eye hole or wherever. And I was like, all right, this is the G.I. Joe comic is violent.
It's violent, and this is the one where they shoot guns.
Exactly.
The new one, they shoot lasers like the cartoon because of the energon, or at least the Cobra does.
Right.
But this was the book that they always shot bullets at each other. So yeah, People get shot, they get shot.
It was a fun time.
I love this. I mean, there was a lot of books I really enjoyed this week, but we knew it was coming. The cover sort of shows it to you, but once you're reading it and you see how seriously it's being done, it was I thought this was great. I read this fairly early on, and nothing else came close to it.
You were very excited about it. What's it? Just sidebar, very briefly, is that I was downstairs and I was showing my very patient but mostly uninterested wife the G.I. Joe book, the compendium that I was carrying around like the Bible. I was under one arm. It has gilt pages. Like there was my gospel. It was my truth, the truth of Hama. And I was sort of flipping through it. And as I do it, I'm going, oh, okay. And she's like, what? And I was like, all the covers tell a story of what happens in it. And the covers are really great. And that's one of the things that I noticed now that I probably would have never clocked before, is that those G.I. Joe comic covers, they're fantastic, and they're everything that comic book covers are supposed to do of the time. And that was sell that book off of a newsstand because you're seeing what's happening inside it and it's exciting.
Absolutely.
Now comic book covers, and we've talked about this a little bit, now comic book covers are design pieces. No one's pulling them off the shelf because they all know what they want when they get in there for the most part. They can't give away anything in it because of everybody knows about the 3 months ahead of time. So I don't think I've noticed it on the new books, but if it's the case on the new Real American Hero series, like this cover is in that tradition.
Totally.
Which I love. And I'm guessing if I go back to the bunch of issues, it's always been like that. And it's just, and they're great. Like if you go through the G.I. Joe covers, especially like the first 50 or whatever, they are all fantastic. They're wonderful, designed and composed, action shots that look great. And this is another one of those. Like it's that tradition continuing.
The only thing that would have been different was they would have put a title saying Destro versus Cobra, because you don't know that's Cobra Commander, really. They would put a title being like Destro versus Cobra Commander, like something. They would have put something on there to identify what you were looking at. But other than that, it is exactly in that vein of the kind of, oh shit, makes you pull the cover off the newsstand if you're a kid or whoever. But really great, and G.I. Joe's great, and this is great, and they're both very different, and it's fun. Someone asked on one of our YouTube videos, where's a place to read this if you don't really know. I wouldn't necessarily say this is the book. I would point you to the Energon one, because that one's designed to sort of start from the beginning and lay it out for you. This has been going on for 30 years. This is an ongoing 30-year story. We're chapter 313.
To be fair, though, I mean, you and I.
I'm not saying you couldn't. I'm just saying of the two.
You and I took. This has been going on over 40 years. I would say you and I took 38 years off and jumped back in. It wasn't like, but I mean, like if you're like, what's great about this? We did the Talksplode of the first chunk of G.I. Joe a while ago. I would say go pick up the first compendium that just came out. I mean, they're super fun. They are indicative of the age that they came out with, and they're good comic books. Like they are, like in the context that they came out, I think they're like, oh, these really cool examples of that age and the things that were going on, and all the stuff, that subtext that's going on, and they're like Vietnam guy working out his shit, selling toys at the same time. It's crazy. And then you're talking about the Cold War 80s America and military jingoism and hero worship of that kind of lifestyle that was going on. And
well, it's very much in tune with what our
Top Gun
entertainment was. Commando, Top Gun, every movie was about that military might of that, showing it off to the Russians. Anyway, we could spend 30 minutes on G.I. Joe, but we'll move on to another great book, another great absolute comic, Absolute Wonder Woman number 4. Kelly Thompson, Hayden Sherman, and Jordi Belair, Becca Carey, really great creative team. But my only criticism for this book had been it was moving a little slowly, but this issue really, brought the storyline, I think, to a close, right? I mean, yes, to a close, basically.
Yeah.
Where Wonder Woman finally she gets her arm back, which had been cut off through the help of Etta Candy and her sister, who are witches. And she uses a spell to grow her arm back, and then she makes an even gianter sword, which made me laugh. I mean, you think the sword couldn't on the cover couldn't get any bigger, but it does. And she kills the beast. I liked it.
I mean, like the first bit is a lot of sort of setting up what's going on. I really like this whole story through the whole thing where she is not she's sort of a stranger in a strange land, but she's not like an amateur. She's not learning how to be a hero. Like she already knows. So she's like, all right, she's a military commander. Oh, here's what's going to happen. This is what you need to know. You need to get these people out of here. There's no concern about trying to understand how this world works or whatever. She's a soldier. She goes in with that competence and confidence, which I've really enjoyed in the last couple of issues, and the army people are like, but she's right about everything. Like she knows exactly what she's doing and she knows the challenge of it. And she's not lying about it. She's like, these people are going to die. Here's what you have to do. I'll fix this as best I can. I might get killed. It's very battlefield sort of forward. And
she's aware of what they're up against. Where they have no clue what these monsters are. She's from that land of the humans.
And I like that. It's a very clear picture of who the character is here. And I think that is a thing that a lot of Wonder Woman books don't quite get because I can't
Wonders Woman.
Wonders Women.
Wonders Woman.
I think Kelly Thompson really approached this with an idea of who the character she is writing is. And it shows. Really great action sequences in this one. No, it's only a few pages like 4 or 5 pages in the end scheme, but the threat felt entirely real. Like it's a big scary monster in a comic book. That's classic stuff. But like because it's not DC proper, you're like, I don't know what could happen. I don't know what could happen here. And the monster was scary. Like they did a good job of drawing and describing a scary ass monster.
What was really funny was on page 3 when Ed and her sister are they're going to evacuate and they open the door and Wonder Woman and Jay Gatsby, Steve Trevor are standing there. The monster's just in the background, like lurking, and I was like, are they just going to let it rampage while they have a conversation? But apparently they do. But man, the way that Hayden Sherman draws that double page spread where she finally takes her gargantuan sword and chops the monster in half. I mean, look inside of that thing. There's so much going on, so much weird monster biology happening. It feels very indie comics.
Yeah.
This feels like, in the vein of those Image books we were reading 10 years ago, like Prophet and those kind of books.
Yeah.
By those guys whose names escape me at the very moment.
The orc guy. Some
of
that
in that vein.
But also with a whole J.H. Williams page setup in the earlier portion. I mean, that stuff is straight out of the J.H. Williams handbook, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but that's hard to pull off.
And he's only doing it here. He's like we talked about this last week, or the week before. He's not doing it in the Batman mini he's drawing. That's very standard. This is crazy, interesting J.H. Williams-esque layout. I think the visual styling of this book is so interesting and makes it so unique. And I don't know if this is popular because this is a very idiosyncratic, iconoclastic style. It's not Jim Lee.
No.
So I don't know. I mean, I from what I hear anecdotally, all these Absolute books are selling really well. So that's awesome.
Sure.
And I hope there's a bunch of comic fans who don't normally read this kind of art are enjoying it and appreciating it. But I think this book is terrific. I really do. And I don't want this to become the Absolute of the Week show. It wasn't this week, but it could have been.
They're the most interesting mainstream books coming out right now, period. Yeah. Like they just are. I was trying to think of a Marvel equivalent. I don't know that there is one. Well, like they're achieving their goal.
There was a discussion on our Discord about the current state of things, and everyone seems to be in agreement on the Discord. I agree. I think DC's at a stronger creative place right now. That's just the way things go. They flip back and forth. One is stronger than the other. I think right now there's much more interesting stuff coming out of DC. I don't know if the sales reflect that. We have no idea what the sales are anymore. But when I look at my list and when we talk about books to talk about in the show, it's been very DC heavy for the last since we've been back from break, and it's just I think this is where things are at the moment.
I would say that the special things at DC, which are these Absolute books, and the Black Label, your DC versus Vampires and Dark, like that's all really good. These sort of regular books at DC are probably not my favorite, but I don't know what like the Ultimate stuff, Fantastic Four and Amazing Spider-Man, those doing that sort of good old superhero kind of stuff. Like that's good, but it's not like a stand. It's what it's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing.
Well, I think, and this is probably a bigger conversation for another time, but I think
Sure.
that Spider-Man is no longer great. That it really hurts my.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
But we'll talk about that other books later. In fact, we'll talk about them right after this break. Wolverine Revenge #4. we were just talking about Marvel. Like this is a really fun book from Hickman and Capullo. And what's interesting is that it's nothing groundbreaking. Like he's not like so the first we talked about this before. The first issue was this is an Elseworld story. It doesn't take place in the Marvel universe, but Marvel doesn't have a mechanism for that, so they don't say anything about it. But it's not. So
Pause.
the first
that cover is a perfect example of what I was talking about. It's a beautiful piece. It's a gorgeous cover. I mean, shit, it's a picture of Wolverine. Could go on any Wolverine book. Doesn't tell you anything. He's steaming.
And that's kind of in Marvel's MO. Not all the time, but since
it's everybody.
Since the Gems 2000, they remember all the Ultimate books had just stock images with nothing to do with what was happening inside. That was distinctly
they were hideous, but those were ugly. At least
right, but that was their strategy. Was just a standard issue. Like this is Spider-Man. This is X-Men. Anyway, the first issue, Magneto dies, setting off an EMP blast that sort of brings the Earth to back to zero. Like there's no more electricity except for in Russia, where they have this one device that can generate power. So then Wolverine and Captain America and Winter Soldier and Nick Fury, original recipe, went to go retrieve that device from the Russians, i.e. steal it. Ended up having to fight against the Russian mutants like Omega Red and Colossus. For some reason, Deadpool. Everybody but Wolverine got killed on the North American side. Cap died. Winter Soldier died. Nick Fury died. Wolverine ended up getting revenge and killing everyone else. And so that was the end of issue 3, was him killing everybody. Issue 4 opens 20 years later, and now they're in the Wild West time. So they're on horses. They're cowboys. They've got about enough technology to recreate the Wild West. So they've got saloons. The only thing is like Wolverine shouldn't have a gray beard. You can see on the cover he's got a gray beard. He ages slowly. He shouldn't have a gray beard, but whatever. That's their sort of visual symbol that it's later. But the whole point of this issue is that the sons of the men he killed have come for revenge. It's a very old story. I'm going to come kill you because you killed my dad. There's a million Westerns about that. It doesn't go so well for those people. But I mean, like, there's nothing groundbreaking here. But Hickman and Capullo, it's a really fun sort of action adventure, big high concept-y thing that Marvel used to do pretty regularly in the 2000s, hasn't done in a while with things like Old Man Logan. And it's fun. I do think I think this will make a terrific trade. Although I'm not sure what the final issue will lead us to, but we'll find out. I guess it's going to be him against Colossus' son because he appears at the end. But Capullo did a great job. It was a little bit delayed, not surprising.
Yeah, I feel like I've lost because there's a couple of low-numbered Wolverine series right now, and so I lost track of this one just because I wasn't sure which one, and also I don't remember to look for Wolverine books. That's a real thing for me.
Right.
Is Hickman?
There's only one issue left of this anyway. So
is this Hickman the Hickman who's doing Ultimate Spider-Man? This is pretty mainstream Hickman.
This is super mainstream. I would never guess this was Hickman, other than it's very smart in an overall sense.
Sure,
it doesn't read as Hickman. It feels like he's sort of. This is like I'm just going to have fun and write like a big summer Western superhero story. Well,
right.
That's what this issue was. The other ones weren't, but I thought this was really fun. And Wolverine may be the best there is at what he does, but Black Canary is the best of the best. Black Canary, best of the best, #3.
Now, I haven't been on when you guys ever talked about this.
Yep.
And you and I have never talked about this.
Oh, exciting!
But it's a very weird book.
It is a very weird. We said that last week about.
But it's weird in a completely different way. Like I'd say 2/3 of the book is just a fight that is being talked at ad nauseum by two announcers who are written in such a way that I want them to shut up, but I'm also impressed by it. You know what I mean? Like
it seems like a dare. Like how much can he write? And lots of people again on our Discord say they skimmed that part because there's so much narration from the.
It's one of those things like it's annoying and I don't know if I like it, but god damn it, I'm impressed by it.
So like Black Canary is fighting
so much like banal conversation.
Yeah,
just
banal.
It works both ways, but I think Banal's better. I just
so
yeah.
So they're fighting in Vegas, like a prize fight. That's the framing device. While we see flashbacks to how we got here, we found out before that Black Canary is throwing the match because her mom has cancer, the original Black Canary. And so she, I guess, reached a financial agreement with Vandal Savage. We find that in this issue to throw the
I don't think
match.
it's a financial agreement. He has the cure for cancer.
Or whatever the agreement is, he'll give her the cure if she throws the fight.
Yeah, but that's going to make him be super rich. I really loved, and I'm hoping this was this issue, but I really loved the scene where Ollie goes in to attack Vandal Savage. They have a knockdown fight, and then Black Canary comes in. Yep. It does the opposite of what you would kind of expect. They come to a business deal, and Ollie's there like on the ground with an arrow in his chest. I think it's been very smart because 2 issues have been, why is this happening, as they slowly reveal it. Now we kind of do know why it's happening, but there's going to be more surprises that come in along the way. The smartest thing Tom King ever did was to make sure that he's constantly pairing himself with amazing artists.
Oh yeah.
And Ryan Sook, I was like, how early did he start drawing this? Because it's been bam, bam, bam. They've all been brilliant. Right. I'm expecting whoever was the X Factor alternate artist to come in and finish the rest of it, but I hope
not. I hope not, because it looks so good. It's this is also a different kind of Ryan Sook. Like he had a very specific style before. This feels like a looser, and the art's not loose. It's the lines are very strong, but it feels like a looser, more fun style for Ryan Sook. And but the thing is, like, this can't be in continuity. It's not a Black Label book, but it can't. It needs to be. Because she is identified as Dinah Lance in the fight by the announcers, and they call her Dinah the whole time. Like that unravels a whole problem. So Ryan and I talked about this before when you were on the show. It's just like the disrespect for secret identity is a real problem. And so to me, there's no way this can be happening in the continuity of the DC universe because of that.
My favorite page in this, and this is the first page, is one of the ringside announcer is interviewing Ted Grant. And so like the panel on there's 6 panels. Panel on the left is like a long drawn out question, single word answer from Ted Grant. They do that 3 times.
He's the Greg Popovich of the boxing world.
Yeah.
No, this was good. Batman shows up to help train. You mentioned Green Arrow showing up that was a fun little bit. Like, I thought I've been enjoying this series, but I thought this was the best issue of it so far.
Yeah, it was. It's the best of the best. We don't, the one thing that we don't have any point of view on yet is Lady Shiva. And so that's the real one out, like, well, what's her part in this? It's not.
You got to believe there's something, because she doesn't.
Sure.
Like, why did she take this fight? Why is it happening in the first place? Is she on some sort of reversal?
Yeah.
It
also can't. This can't be in continuity, because no one would know who she was. She wouldn't want anybody to know who she is. But here, she's like so famous. Like, it's not how criminal martial artists work.
I don't know why this isn't Black Label. It should have been, but
I don't care. Like, it's just like, read it on its own as a thing. It's a departure. I could tell you it was Tom King because of the way it's structured.
Oh, absolutely.
There's all these 1-page stories, but it's not like a story he's done.
Right. No, I thought this was terrific. Yeah. Really, really good.
We are listener supported and viewer supported. I'm all confused now. You can directly support the show and become a part of a great community on Discord and Facebook by going to patreon.com/iFanboy. You get those communities. You get the patron power live on the show at the $5 or higher level. You can join the monthly patron hangout at $10 or higher. You get an ad-free version of this show. Plus, you get the show a day early on Saturday. Plus, you get access to the iFanboy after show on Sundays, where we talk about all the books that didn't make this particular show's rundown. Sometimes that's a longer segment than others. There's a discount if you sign up for 1 full year as opposed to on a monthly basis, and you can now send or receive gift memberships. Go to patreon.com/iFanboy/gift. Oh, 2 slashes. Patreon.com/iFanboy/gift for more info on that. We have a merch store over at iFanboy.threadless.com. There are 20 designs on t-shirts and more, other sundries. I don't really know the definition of sundries, but I believe I am using it correctly. We have 7 new designs that showed up at the end of last year. And with any luck, with any grace, there will be more in 2025. Because what we want to do is just bury you in designs.
There's a sale going on.
Oh, look at that.
So check it out.
Get on the mailing list. We'll tell you about it, but there's sales. iFanboy.com/support is a direct donation via PayPal link if you don't want to deal with any of that other stuff. iFanboy.com/Amazon is a general shopping link at that address. And you know how affiliate things work. You buy something, it costs you nothing, but it helps us out a great deal. Bookshop.org is a local bookstore aggregator to order books and get them sent from some wonderful businesses. And you will find those on the website where appropriate. That's all good stuff. Thank you for everybody who has been part of that, and for everybody who's just listening through that over and over again. You probably skipped it, didn't you? Justice League Unlimited #3.
I know you're not reading this, but it's really too bad. This is so good. This is part of. I really do enjoy the Mark Waid's pocket. That's not a great pocket of the DC pantheon right now, where the publishing is the world's finest and Unlimited, and then the ancillary books. What's funny about this one, though, is that this was about one of the storylines in it was about starting the Atom Project, something we already had in first issue of, but so we're a little out of sync. Dan Mora had 2 comics out this week. He had this one and he had Superman. They do that with writers, but I don't even know the last time I saw an artist have 2 books out on the same week.
I think we've seen Dan Mora do it, but
we have a terrific Swamp Thing, even though he's a new person who I don't even know about, but I still call him Alec Holland. Terrific version of Swamp Thing. Looks great. Dan Mora draws a really great Swamp Thing.
Some other kind of Swamp Thing we never heard about.
And there's all kinds of mysteries happening. They're still fighting these creatures. It's a slam bang action book featuring the entire DC universe, which means Mark Waid gets to write them, Dan Mora gets to draw them. It's really great. So they're dealing with the powers. Plastic Man had the wrong powers. They find the woman who had his powers, and she's all messed up because she doesn't know how to use them. So she's basically a pile of goo. So they have to save her.
I know that feeling.
They swap the powers back so that he's got them again. Like there's a lot happening. It feels like a very fast-paced action story, and I'm really enjoying it. I think this has been the most fun Justice League book that's come around.
I fell off it. I made a note. I'll catch up. I didn't really mean to not read it.
I understand.
I must have read the first one.
I don't think you did, because you didn't know this title. You thought it was an animated tie-in.
I mean, to be fair, Justice League has been so bad for so long that it's become very easy to ignore as a thing. But
yep.
Yeah, only 3 issues. I can catch up on that. I'm used to catching up. Iron Man #674 or 4. So the first one, I was like, okay, he's lost his company again. Okay. Right. I'm going to give this a shot. We're going to read it. There's some interesting things in here.
I didn't make it past the first one.
Okay. I'm not going to recommend that you do that. I don't think there's a reason.
I was surprised to see it on the list.
And I think, this is actually one of those, I don't know how long I can hold on to this. There's some all right stuff in here, but it does feel like ground that has been trod recently.
It was just the last arc or the arc before.
And now it's about, because he built basically he won because he put Mysterium in his suit, but then it became vulnerable to magic. And now it's about getting the magic out of his firmware. And I don't care. There's actually the same, I think Fantastic Four, the same thing where Reed has to come to terms with magic. And this is Tony has to come to terms with magic at the same time. And I was just reading, I don't know if it was a DC, I think it was a DC book. I don't remember what it was, but they were like, as you know, magic always comes at a cost. And I was like, Jesus, yeah. Jason Aaron, you ruined everything by saying that in that Doctor Strange. It's in everything.
It is.
It's the weirdest thing.
That was this week. What book was that? That was something where magic comes at a cost. And I was like, oh, does it have to?
It was in Absolute Wonder Woman, I think, actually.
Yeah, it might have been.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, it was, because she used magic to get her arm back.
Right. I was like, do we care that Wonder Woman casts spells? And I was like, I don't care. It's fine. It works. There is a thing here where Riri shows up. I like Riri. I haven't seen her in a while. She was in this. That was interesting. But they order In and Out to be delivered. And then on the page after it, what is on that table is not the packaging from In and Out. And I said, you can go ahead and mention it, but you better
send the artist some reference.
You better draw that like In and Out, because that's a very specific. If you said McDonald's and it came in the wrong container, it wouldn't work. It's, don't say it if you're not going to follow up. It's just as bad as the pizza. I might give it one more. There's things to like about it, but I'm not getting anything new out of it, so I'm not getting anything exciting. It's more like, well, how are they going to solve this problem and move on to the next thing? And that's not a reason to read a comic book.
Green Arrow 363 or issue 20. Love that they're using the legacy numbering on DC Books. Chris Condon. That's an Iron Man story.
Yeah.
What are we looking at here?
Look at
that. That's not how they do it at
it isn't. Not at all.
Can you get In and Out delivered?
I'm sure you can get anything delivered in LA now.
That's true. Green Arrow 363 or issue 20. Chris Condon.
I think she flies like across the country. I think they're in Chicago, and that's like the joke. Like she flies to In and Out and gets it and comes back. I don't know.
I see.
Sorry. Talk about this book. Talk about The Longbow Hunters by Chris Condon.
That's exactly it. We talked. Ryan and I talked about this when you were on the show. The first issue of it, and it feels very much of the Mike Grell school of Green Arrow, despite the fact he's got a cape. And I love it. I really do. I think Montos has done a terrific job of the art. It's very street level Mike Grell, not Mike Grell, but of that school more than say a Scott McDaniel or a Phil Hester, who on a Green Arrow. And much like Detective Comics, which we're not talking about but came out this week, it's just Green Arrow fighting crime. Like the last arc of Green Arrow that I remember was him lost in time. And there was an arc about him in the future. And like, this is just Green Arrow being a superhero. And eventually just like, can't Green Arrow like shoot a motherfucker in the chest with an arrow? And you say, yes, in this book he can. And I love this book. I mean, it's not amazing, but I really just love the back to basics aspect of it. I think it's fun.
A lot of books say they're going to go back to basics, but this is like him walking around on the ground with a cop and like giving him guff at the crime scene, which was all kind of interesting and sort of his, it's a what's the movie, like Blackwater? It's a like a corporation poisons the well and kills people kind of story. So there's a corporate political sort of element that's from the real world because he's an industrialist and he's complicit in some of this stuff. And but like the full on retreat to street level here is literal and they never actually follow through with that, which is really interesting. I just kind of love the costume. Like he's got these crazy black like 3/4 like ball gown gloves from the 1920s, but the two fingers are bare and the others aren't,
which is great.
Nice,
great little design choice. And then he has he's wearing a domino mask and he's got a hood, but he also has a cover for his face, which you always like. Well, everyone would recognize Green Arrow, Ollie Queen's mustache, but now no one sees it. So I just think this is a really fun take on Green Arrow. Does it fit? Doesn't matter.
It's funny that all the main DC characters who have secret identities are all like public figures. Every one of them. It's this stupid like we have face recognition. Like, I mean, even if it's this much, like you see Ben Affleck, and you're like, it's Ben Affleck in that mask. Anyway,
that's why Ben Affleck can't fight crime.
That's comic book logic. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I think this is really fun.
Yeah,
I think this worked better than the Chris Condon book last week, which was the Ultimate Wolverine one. That's the books we're going to talk about. At patreon.com/iFanboy, every patron gets a vote to add the book to the rundown this week by overwhelming like a 5-1 margin over its second place book. The winner of the patron pick was Dr. Doom and Rocket Raccoon #1 from Marvel Comics, written by J. Michael Straczynski, art by Will Robson, colors by Andrew Dahlhaus, colors by Corey Pettit. This is a part of a series of team up books that Marvel's doing for some reason I can't figure out. I don't know why, but they're doing them. And so I don't hate or I don't have an antipathy towards Michael Straczynski's writing like you do.
None?
I think he's written some really, really terrible comics. I think he's written some really, really great comics. So
those are both true statements.
So you never know. Like his Captain America he just did was really bad. I didn't like it.
Really bad.
Really, really, really bad. I lasted way longer on the book than you did, but it was really bad.
Yeah.
Well, he's also like his Thor run, and going. I'm
mentioning
books that came out 20 years ago.
There's been good books.
Yeah.
But he doesn't finish them.
Brave and the Bold. Well, this is just a one shot.
Yeah.
He's got to finish it. Unless what would be really funny was the pages are blank when you got to the end.
Think about how many unfinished JMS one shots are out there that we didn't ever hear about because he just walked away.
I love Dr. Doom. I have I'm agnostic on Rocket Raccoon. Not real. I didn't read the Abnett Lanning run. The Guardians films are my least among my least favorite of the Marvel movies. So I don't really feel any strong way towards Rocket Raccoon. So I didn't really enjoy this issue.
It was bad.
I didn't like the art either. I thought the art was
yeah, like I mean, I don't think that like it was without like it wasn't like conceived of badly. There is an interesting thing here is that at some point, and I don't know when, but Doom and Rocket were together, and Doom recognized that Rocket is a super intelligent genius like him, and so they respect each other, which is interesting. And that is a good reason to put them together. But every single moment in this rang false to me. Doom didn't sound like Doom.
Yeah. Which is weird because he's written Doom before.
Rocket didn't feel like Rocket. A little bit, but you know, like, and then there were bits where like Doom is treating him like they are equals and that he respects him, and that's interesting. Yeah. But then there were other times where he got all Doom on him, and I was like, make your mind up what this is, or at least play with it more.
Right. The whole thing is that they want to go, or Doom wants to go back in time, back past the Big Bang to find out why the universe is. He knows what it is, and he knows where it is, and he knows all those other. He doesn't know why it happened, so he wants to go
and leave because of this writer to try to give us the answer.
Right, and so was it because he thought that would give the answer to why Doom? Like that was a little
like why do I do? He's got fucking middle-aged ennui. That's what it is. Why am I like this? What did happen? Why am I like?
And I have to admit, he's not wrong, because I find myself, the older I get, the more contemplating, why the fuck is any of this happening? Where are we? What is going on? What is the universe? Why is the universe? Like, I ask these questions all the time.
And Doom
and I'm not even high most of the time when I'm doing it.
And most of the time. And Doom is the right person to ask those questions and act on it. I don't necessarily I'm getting nitpicky because I'm trying to figure, this isn't like, here's what's wrong with it. This is me trying to figure out why it wasn't satisfying. And I think that the reasons for his doing it here were a little soft for Doom. Like, if he did it because he wanted to use it to capture the future and like complete his reign of everything because he needed that knowledge to move forward, I buy that. I'm sad about my parents. I don't want that from Doom. That's not Doom.
Yeah. I mean,
that feels weird.
I don't know. I always do like a little bit when his like love for his mom pops up, but
yeah, but it's this context though.
I think it works better if he's not, as you said, out of character through the whole issue anyway, which so it makes it more glaring. Mm-hmm. But I mean, like, no disrespect to Will Robeson, but I just didn't think his art worked for this story. It was way too cartoony.
The design for both of them looked weird. There's a couple of shots of Rocket.
I'm looking at page 14 where the camera's coming down on them. Just a very strange drawing of Doom. He doesn't look imposing or menacing. He just looks like a guy in a cosplay outfit. It just doesn't. I don't like it.
Rocket looks too much. He looks like
he looks like a stuffed animal.
Yeah,
or a stuffy, as the kids call him.
Yes, they do. I can confirm.
When did that happen?
I don't know. I thought that was the thing that was just in my house. I didn't know that was.
That's it. That's all.
No kidding.
Not even stuffed animal does not exist as a phrase anymore.
Like honestly, like there's a way that every front on shot of Rocket looks weird. Like under his nose should be like they have that split like a dog or a cat does, and he doesn't draw it here. He draws them with like a human lip.
Yeah.
I didn't like I think this art. I think this art would be appropriate for something.
But not this story. It's not bad, the art itself. It isn't. The style isn't working for this story.
Correct.
That's my point about it.
Yeah, and it was funny, air quote funny,
right,
which is a way of saying it was trying to be funny, but I did not find it funny. It was flat.
When did the whole thing of people calling him Rabbit happen? Was that the movies or that happened in the comic?
Movie? Yeah, he's quoting the movie, which is
that should not be happening in this book.
Nope.
Because it doesn't make any sense. It made a little bit of sense in the movie when it happened, but like he doesn't look anything like a rabbit, so why would anyone call him that?
Right. I mean, don't take that's hacky. So I'm so like, don't take the joke from the movie and put it in here. That doesn't make sense. And no one else does it. Like if it was like a thing that everybody did, like they'll refer to, you know, but like to take the joke from the come on.
Yeah, it was
kids will love this.
This was a slog.
Yes, it was. Also, and as long as I'm on it, I said, who did this cover? And it says here, Gary Frank. And I was like, really?
No, that can't be.
That's a Gary Frank cover.
Really? Let me scroll furiously to the front here.
Cover artist, Gary Frank and Alex Sinclair. It's not good.
Oh, yeah, that is Gary Frank. Not terrible.
I
kind
know,
of like the
but
chainmail underneath Doom's suit.
no, there's stuff that's good about it, but it's a
Yeah, it is
weird
Gary
cover.
Frank. He signed it.
It's a
Oh,
weird
this is
cover treatment.
this is very interesting. Gary Frank 2022 is the signature.
Hmm.
So that was drawn 2 years ago. 3 years ago.
If you look at Doom's knees, there's xenomorphs.
And I cannot see it. You son of a bitch. Wow, it is xenomorphs. Jesus. I was like looking for it in the reflection, and I pulled back like, nope, that's the mouth. So the cover was drawn 3 years ago. That's very interesting. Did they just say draw a bunch of characters, or did they have this thing planned for 3 years?
I don't know. It's not like the proportions are off. Like I don't. It's not good. It's like he did a sketch at a con, and they were like, "We'll just use that."
So I don't have any desire
look
now
at the composition of it. Like it's such a boring image for a cover with two awesome characters.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we've been talking about covers this week, and this is the opposite of the G.I. Joe cover.
Yeah,
you know,
it is like, something that happens in the book, sort of.
Well, but it does. They drink and eat together.
It's a really boring image.
It's not dynamic. This would not pass the John Buscema test.
No.
And Gary Frank's one of my favorite artists. So
no, absolutely.
Everyone can have an off day.
That's why it was surprising. He was getting out of the pandemic. He's got Jeff sending him all these scripts for a comics line he's not sure is worth betting his career on. Okay, so I'll do this cover work.
All right, let's rate Dr. Doom and Rocket Raccoon #1 ratings out of 5 ratings. I'm giving it a 2 out of 5.
I am also giving it a 2, which I believe is my second 2 in a row.
Of the year. In a row.
Yeah,
you didn't
last
like
week. No, I did not like that book.
Second question. We always ask 3 questions at the end of here. Would you have read this otherwise? And the answer is no. I did not have this on my list to read it.
Certainly not.
And sticking with it now, this issue is over, but there are other team-ups.
I would have looked at it, but I would have seen the credits and not read it.
Will you read any of the further team-up books in this little...
Are they by the same people?
I have no idea. Doesn't say.
I mean, possibly, but I'm going to base that on the creative team more than anything.
Probably not, honestly. That's my answer. Is probably not.
They've got a few of these little things going on now. The what ifs, and they're not good.
Yeah,
they don't look good.
We've got a talent problem. So that's a bigger question. Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thank you for being a patron and voting on the Patron Pick. Every patron gets a vote out of book to the rundown. And we thank you very much. But if you're a patron at the $5 or higher level, you get a power given to you live on the show. Is it dumb or awesome? There's no way to know.
It's a completely subjective.
No one will ever know.
It's impossible for the ages.
To know. This week's patron power goes to the mysteriously named Mike. Could it be?
I know Mike.
Is it Mike Trout? Is it Mike Romo? Is it Mike Wallace? Probably not. He's dead. It could be all kinds of Mikes. I choose to believe it's Mike Avon Oming.
Mike Hammer? Is there a Mike Hammer?
I was trying to think of, could be Michael J. Fox. I was trying to think of a famous Mike, and I just went blank on it. I blanked on it. It's Michael J. Fox. That's what I think.
Do you want to give him a power?
Yeah, I do, but I'll also, I don't want to, this, whatever. This power, it may be a duplicate. Occasionally it happens. We've given out like 1,600 of them.
It's my boy, Mike.
Mike has all power and domain over glazing and deglazing. So, if you needed like a tile, like a nice glaze on a tile, he can do that with one hand while glazing a ham with the other hand. He can do all the glazing.
So those are very different types.
Right, but it's all glazing.
Anything.
All glazing. He's the master of all glazing.
I wonder if there's anybody named Mike Glazer. Feels like that should be a comedian.
There's Brian Glazer.
So donuts.
He can glaze a donut. He just go.
Can he make my face look sort of confused and blank?
Is that what that means?
Yeah, like it's just glazed over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Give you a glazed look. Yeah, glazed look. He can glaze it. He can also deglaze it. He's the power. He has the power of glazing and deglazing. Anything to do with glazing.
Now, deglazing, I think, is is an actual term for something. Like you would deglaze something,
right?
But it's not necessarily
having anything to do with glazing.
The opposite of let's see.
I'm not saying but he could take the glaze off a turkey if you wanted.
So,
I don't like.
So that's the
glaze.
thing.
Take it off.
So deglazing is, I know this now, I just out of context. It's the concept of like taking the stuff from the food that you're cooking that's stuck on the bottom of the pan and adding a liquid or something to sort of remove it and then add that flavor back into the food, which, as pointed out, has nothing to do with the glazing process.
He would be great in the kitchen, Mike.
I mean, the fact is, like, anybody can do that.
But he just, it's just a simple process for Mike. Just
can I deglazing is one of my favorite parts of cooking because it's not
nice
only
gravy
making the food good. It's like using a magic trick to clean something up and then having it be better afterwards. Like you have a dirty pan that has stuff stuck all over it, and then you pour something on it and it cleans it right off, like a TV infomercial cleaner. It's the best.
Right.
Oh,
it's great. So, Mike, enjoy your powers of glazing and deglazing, and anti-glazing. Deglazing and anti-glazing. Well, that would be removing the glazing.
Isn't anti-glazing protecting things from glazing? You would apply.
For sure.
You would apply an anti-glazer to that, and it's gonna know, like, what did you anti-glaze my donut for? I want this on here. Mike's like, only one thing can fix it.
iFanboy. Thanks for being a patron, Mike, at the $5 or higher level. You can get your own superpower live on the show by going to patreon.com/iFanboy and joining up today. We have 2 emails. I think we have time for them. That'll be fun. Let's do this, and let's do this.
At some point, Omar on The Wire refers to a character as my boy Mike. I'm almost positive.
That could be him too.
I think, yeah.
So last week we had an email from Dan C. from New Jersey. This is Dan C. from Baltimore, Maryland. There are 2 different Dan C's. I don't know if that's allowed, but we're taking it. Dan C. from Baltimore, Maryland says, to my shock, speaking of The Wire, to my own shock, I've been reading the current run of All New Venom, and a big hook in that book is the mystery of who exactly this new Venom is. And despite my better judgment, I have become invested in learning the truth.
I've read a book just like this before.
That had me thinking of other long-running mysteries that DC and Marvel have done throughout the years. For example, when Marvel put so much hype regarding the secret identity of the Red Hulk, do you have any from your time read that stuck with you that kept you hooked? Curious to hear what your thoughts are and if the reveals were actually satisfying. So Dan C. from Baltimore, Maryland.
I appreciate that Dan, in between picking up lake trout, he gave us an example. The Red Hulk is a very good one because it was a mystery for a long time.
We loved it.
Yeah.
I think talking about it. Yeah.
I think like I thought I wouldn't, and then I sort of started to look at it and I was like, no, I'm completely wrong about this. This is fantastic. Was it Loeb?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff Loeb.
Loeb McGinnis.
And Ed McGuinness. Classic.
We took so much shit for liking that book, but we did, and we stand by it.
We didn't have the word for good old superhero back then, but
it was super gosh.
There's others, and I'm having a hard time.
Well, while you think about it, I'll say that when I was first getting into going to the store every week in 1991, they had the summertime crossover event because that's when the crossover events happened, and they had Armageddon 2001, which was an event about the future, about 10 years in DC's future, 2001. And when one of the heroes went evil and killed everybody. And so the whole mystery throughout the whole summer was who was becoming monarch, which hero would go bad and kill everyone. And that was great, especially in junior high school when I was getting from casually reading comics that I had at home or would occasionally pick up to going every week and following the ongoing adventures for the first time. To get dropped into a story like that felt so crazy and big and something I hadn't really experienced before was incredibly fun. Every week going to the store, getting the next chapter, not really understanding they weren't going to reveal the killer in the early days. So I was like, maybe it's this one, and it wouldn't be. And that was also funny because
the right age.
Yeah, that was pre-internet, but still the identity was blown, and so they had to scramble and change it in the last minute. So it was meant to be, get this, it was meant to originally be Captain Atom, who went crazy and killed everybody, which is funny. that's all they can think to do with him. And so they had to go and scramble, and they changed it to Hawk from Hawk and Dove, who somehow gained the power of Monarch and killed him. But it was a great miniseries. Every annual was tied into it. So you got to see every hero's future, which was also fun. But that was great. I loved that.
I was trying to think of an example, and I was like, I think there was one in the Gemis days, and I was trying to remember what it was. And it was Who is Ronin, and it turned out that it was Hawkeye.
Oh yeah.
And that was fun. I remember that being a thing, and then being sort of delighted that it was a character that I knew. I don't remember much else about it. I mean, I was thinking of like mysteries, like who's the killer, so in it, Dr. Light in Identity Crisis or something like that, or actually Watchmen is actually one of those, but I don't think that's what he means. But it's like, who is so and so, and I feel like it's been done a lot, but I was done before my time, so I always know.
Well, it's also interesting because sometimes the mystery, and this doesn't appeal to the books we talked about, but sometimes the mystery is not about the reader, but it's about the characters. I remember,
yeah.
In Robin, they did one where there was somebody who was the identity was secret. They take the mask off to be shadowy, and the reveal was like Anarchy or one of the minor characters from Robin, and it wasn't that like crazy for us, but for Robin it was a big deal. The reveal to him was bad. So sometimes the reveal is about us. Red Hulk would be about us.
That's a very.
Sometimes it's about the characters and not about us. Not always about us.
I can see in my mind like old covers of like the back of someone's head, and then a bunch of characters in the front of them, like who's like, I feel like that was a very classic Golden Silver Age,
And I love that trope. I really do. I just think it's fun.
No, I do too.
So, there you go, Dan.
I wish I could think of more, but I think Ronin, Clint Barton is probably the one that I remember most in the modern age. I think they probably did the same thing for like Venom as Flash, but we knew who everybody is because 3 months. We know. So by the time the third issue comes out, they can't keep it a secret that long, and they won't. Well, maybe can't string people along then.
Maybe there won't be any more previous books coming out. So
that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
So maybe that'll help. Next email is a bit of a long one, but we'll try our best.
I just realized that somewhere there's an indie comics person just going, well, now I'll never get into previews. That's kind of sad.
This email comes from Jason M. from Virginia. And Josh, I hope you have some expertise in this matter. Jason says, I recently heard someone raise the point that a majority of the U.S. comics are printed in Canada. Removing political feelings from the equation, if tariffs end up going into place, we could potentially see a 25% increase in the cost of comics. Eventually, the publishers would move to U.S.-based printers, but one would assume that would increase the cost of the comics as well. If it were cheaper to do it domestically, they would already be doing it. 2 questions for you to comment on.
Might not be 25% cheaper.
Question 1. Do you think a drastic increase in cover price, let's just go a 25% number for sake of argument, will signal the beginning of the end for a lot of the books and perhaps the industry as a whole? While this won't put Marvel and DC out of business overnight, it would likely result in lower performing books getting cut as readers drop off, and it could put smaller publishers in dire straits immediately. Do you want to hear a second question, or do you want to just talk about the first one first?
Let's talk about the first one, unless it's sort of...
Because you used to work in publishing and printing, so I think you have maybe some insight into this.
I mean, first of all, no one knows what's going to happen or how it's going to be implemented or how it's going to work. And
just for the sake of argument, but we don't,
and I'm not smart enough, but I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of carve outs. And so, it's possible that, it's not just so much cheaper to print in Canada, but so it has to do with bulk, and it has to.
They also print in China as well. They print a lot
but not comics. They take too long because
they print the collected editions in China.
But that's because there's like a longer lead time because it's not economically,
which is also being looked at for tariffs. So it could be the same problem.
And you'd have to send them by slow boat basically. Whereas it's easier to print them and then get them on shelves for the issues. I mean, it could be that they can find somewhere to print them in America. I honestly don't know. I never learned about or worked with a place that was comparable to Québécois in America who did it, because Québécois has been basically the sole printer of it, forever. So like nobody else has bothered to buy the equipment to do it. It wouldn't make any sense in terms of CapEx.
Or have the expertise, not just the equipment, but the people.
Or have it be economically worth it.
Right.
And you can't do like it's too expensive to print them digitally, which is what a lot of people are investing in here. I don't know. I mean, I think is the question like will it signal the beginning and the end?
Well, so for sake of argument,
Okay.
if all of a sudden overnight comics went up 25% in cost, that's what he's basically saying. Would that be the end of things?
It's
And I don't.
happened.
So let's say right now, what it's like $4 to $5
It
for a
went from
book.
$3 to $4. I mean, it happened. That's 33%.
Right. So if a $4 book becomes $5, or a $5 book becomes $6.25 or whatever a quarter of is, I mean, that's a lot. And
page count goes down, maybe page rates go down. It's gonna hurt. Do they sell a lot less? Man, I don't know. I feel like it's a captive audience now. Like there's these people who are diehards and they're gonna ride the ship down, but it's not like they're adding anybody.
I mean, people will buy fewer.
Yes.
When prices go up, people do take fewer flyers on new books or books they don't normally check out. Like Batman fans read Batman books, but they may not check out Superman.
Right.
X-Men fans may not check out Avengers. That would be certainly a knock-on effect of that kind of thing. But I don't. Would it collapse the industry overnight? No, they'd figure out something. I mean, it may collapse eventually, but it wouldn't be overnight. Maybe for some smaller publishers. Everyone's on a knife's edge in terms of revenue and profit in comics. So
yeah,
the disruption of that.
What was there was a line in there, and the question was like, would it put smaller publishers in dire straits immediately? And I was like, that's kind of their sweet spot. There is actually
that's where they live.
They live in dire straits. That's
Let's check out a second question. Again, assuming the drastic increase in cover price of printed books, will the publishers increase the cost of the digital books as well with an eye on not having them cannibalize the print market sales? Or is this perhaps the tipping point that pushes a bulk of readers to a cheaper digital medium? I've been thinking about this for the last few hours since I heard about the nugget of Canadian printing and thought you might like to comment. Jason M. from Virginia. That's I think kind of interesting because digital, we all know, came on the scene. People freaked out. 7 to 10% of the audience started reading digitally, and it's basically stayed flat since then.
So what is interesting, and I hadn't thought about this.
Although we haven't seen sales in a year, so who knows?
But the pressure,
or 4 years, or whatever it's been.
The pressure for keeping those prices at parity, because I don't think that was supposed to be the intent.
It wasn't.
Which come from retailers and Diamond.
Right. It wasn't. The intent was to make them cheaper, but the retailers revolted and they made them keep the parity pricing.
I think the people most likely to be hurt by this are retailers, all of it.
Yeah.
It's going to fall on them. And it's possible. Like,
and this is coming at the worst possible time where Diamond's in bankruptcy. There's like 3 distributors now that apparently no one likes working with them. There's some stores that won't work with Lunar because they see it as a competitor, and Lunar's the only person that puts out DC and now Image. And so it's a real mess out there already. And now if you add in, and who knows if they're going to have it or not, but you add in these proposed tariffs, I can't believe anybody who owns a store right now is feeling really good about things at the moment.
Again, nor were they.
No, but
yeah,
maybe you make your nut every month, but you're not, but now you're like, what the fuck's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
I don't. This is all wild, rampant speculation. I have no idea what the publishers would do, but I do think it's interesting how few readers just will not read comics digitally.
I mean, I actually understand it in that, and I can say, if you look behind me, there's a bunch of records there, and that's because the joy of that thing is the physical thing. And I think to a lot of comic book readers, that's part of it. I mean, obviously, and to you and I, it's become much more about the content of the thing. And so the form is whatever's most convenient.
Well, I like the form in collected form. I like,
sure. I know, but that's what I'm saying.
Joe Bible thing earlier, right? You really talked about it as a holy tome.
And that's how I carried it.
And that's how I look at collected books. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the same thing. It's just applied in that particular way.
Right.
I don't know.
You do wonder though, let's say this happened and they couldn't make the economics of print work. And they said, listen, we're going all digital. I do wonder what would happen because I think it would go under. There's a large faction of the audience that just won't do it, which is interesting because they love the characters so much in the stories. But for
the overhead of talent and so much of the production doesn't go down.
No, the human cost stays the same. And that's the bulk of the comic. That's people don't in the beginning, everyone thought comics should be 99 cents digitally, but you still got to pay the artist and the writer and the inker, no matter what form you're putting the book out.
I am going to make a speculation here, and I am going to think that I bet Amazon's cut of a digital comic book sale is not all that different from the physical cost of printing the book. Amazon charges a lot.
Yeah.
And so, like, say that out of a $4 purchase, Amazon's taking somewhere between $1 or $2. I bet that's about what it costs them to print it. And it's really easy for people to say, like, "Whoa, they don't have to print anything physically," but there's costs involved.
There's so many costs involved.
There's so many costs involved. It would be a problem. I mean, the thing is like, this is insert ABCDEFG industry right now who has no idea what is going to happen in their future.
Right.
And it's a weird time. I mean, this affects me at work. It affects you.
Right.
And so you can't plan on something you don't know. But for an industry that is, always right in the margins, that's got to be scary. So I recommend not thinking about it.
I mean, what can you do? It's tough. It's scary. I mean, like if they announced that, that'd be really, you'd have to really worry about it as a comic fan, or even more so as a retailer or a publisher. So thank you for writing in, Dan and Jason. Contact at iFanboy.com. Said they wrote it. We want to hear from you. Get on the show. Send us your thoughts. We appreciate it. If you want to get in the media splode, put media splode in the subject line. And thank you for doing that as well. A couple other shows we did in the past month. A couple weeks ago, we did our book splode of Fortune and Glory, the musical. That video version just came out on YouTube last week. So if you want to see some of the art we talked about, or put some page by page, side by side comparisons of the original art and the new art, and some, because it's a single book we're talking about, we were able to show more than we would normally on this show. So you can check that on YouTube. Then last week, 2 weeks ago, we had our media splode talking about what we watched over the holidays. Super fun. Really enjoyed that one. It was like a little mini all media year-end roundup, but in reverse. So I enjoyed it.
You can find our library of. You put the number back, you bastard.
14. You said you wanted it back. Make up your mind.
I don't. Yes. I don't.
Last week you said you wanted it back.
I don't remember saying that, but I don't disagree with you. I'm not refuting it. I'm just saying I don't remember it, which is fair. Of 1,429 shows over at iFanboy.com, where the podcasts are sold, distributed, listened to, handed out, or otherwise. I couldn't think of another synonym. Never miss a show. Find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out by following us at iFanboy Comics on Instagram and Threads, iFanboy at iFanboy.com on Blue Sky. And you can follow us individually, CS Kilpatrick and Jay Flanagan on Instagram.
Please consider writing us a review, leaving a star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you listen on Pocket Casts, you've got to subscribe, and you've got to download a few episodes before you can do it, but please consider doing it. We thank you very much. Subscribe to youtube.com/iFanboy, where you can watch the video version of this show, which maybe you're doing right now, as well as our special edition shows. We're putting everything we can up on YouTube. We're not saying every show will be there, but we're putting all the ones we can. You can find our archive over all of our old video shows that we did from 2007, 2012. They're all there. And finally, join us in the after show. Come along with us. We'll be exclusively on Patreon talking about all the other books we read this week that didn't make the rundown. That's at patreon.com/iFanboy for everyone with a $10 a month tier and up. So thank you very much. And last week, we mentioned Dream Center. DreamCenter.org is an organization here in Los Angeles. They're boots on the ground, helping people who are affected by the fires. We made a donation. I know lots of people made donations individually. Thank you if you did so before. If you haven't done so, you can afford it. Please consider donating to DreamCenter.org or anyone who's helping out victims of the fires here in Los Angeles. It's been pretty bad. More of them just blew up in this past week in different places. It's still not over. The fires are still burning, even though it's not so in the news as it was in the last couple of weeks, but it's still happening. So we appreciate everyone who's helping out. Thank you very much. And that is it for this week's show. My name is Connor.
I am Josh. Thanks so much.
I had really bad allergies and I just can't stop itching my nose because it's itching like crazy. I'm not on cocaine.
That's exactly what somebody on cocaine would say.
It's a catch-22.
They would say it faster.
Stop itching.